we're suing California. We just filed this law because this complaint. They are trying to pass this social media law called AB 587, which requires, it's a censorship law. They require these policies on disinformation, misinformation, hate speech, and then they use undefined. Use the words extremism and radicalization. There's no definitions. They don't require you to have a child exploitation material policy, but they do require you to have a policy on hate, which isn't defined. Right. And so we're suing them with the Babylon Bee and Tim Pool.
When did they start this? When they start trying to pass this?
It just went into effect in January.
So it's now.
It's in.
So if you live in California, what's the repercussions?
So it's targeted at social media companies. Okay. So basically mandating that social media companies submit these policies. So they would force us to write a policy on hate speech and submit it to them. And then additionally, we would have to, on like a biannual basis, submit analytics about all of our moderation data, which honestly, we're already transparent about our moderation data. So that's largely public anyway. We have a jury system, and we have in-house moderators. But it's a huge burden. Like, it's crazy that they would expect companies to submit all that and then have these arbitrarily, well, actually not arbitrarily, specifically chosen categories for policies that are clearly politically charged. And Newsom, like, when he came out and announced this law, it was very, we have to stop hate on social media and misinformation and disinformation, protect society, protect democracy. No, you're not protecting democracy by stopping free speech. That is,
because there's no checks and balances in place if something turns out to be accurate, where then whoever put out that disinformation initially, like if someone posts something like, say, masks don't work, and they get banned off of Twitter and say, oh, this is in response to the CDC's, but if it turns out that masks actually don't work, the CDC doesn't get punished, which is kind of fucking crazy. Because if they're the ones that are setting these guidelines, and these guidelines turn out to be inaccurate, and people get banned off of social media for arguing with these guidelines, there's no repercussions. There's nothing, these people are fucked, and there's no recourse. There's nothing to do.
Actually, that's the policy that we do need. We need the policy for social networks and media companies to, apologize and and fix their wrongs.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, why wouldn't the CDC be punished then? Well, shouldn't they be banned? Mm-hmm. Or shouldn't they be, have a strike against them? But they're not. It's like, it's really frustrating because you're dealing with narratives that are oftentimes 100% propaganda, and they're not backed by science. They're not backed. It's just like some things that people say. Like when Rachel Maddow was on television telling everybody that this vaccine stops the virus in its tracks. If you get vaccinated, the virus can no longer affect you. It can't affect anyone else. It stops, and we can get out of this thing. Well, that's not fucking true at all. And that person, there was no repercussion other than public mockery, which continues to this day, where, whenever she posts something, people post that video. What about this, stupid? And, there's nothing other than that.
I know. They're not even inviting the other side on to correct the issues. They're certainly not, correcting their errors. And, it's just not that hard to admit you're wrong. I don't know. Maybe it is hard but people get into their own egos and they just can't handle it.
Well, there's people that are beyond reproach, and that's the problem, or organizations that, like, one of the things that's fascinating about Twitter now is they fact-check the Biden administration. So the Biden administration put out some tweets that were 100% horseshit, and then underneath it, Twitter fact-checked them, so they deleted the tweets, which is glorious. Like, that's amazing, and that's never happened before.
Yep, Community Notes is my favorite feature on Twitter by far. It keeps everybody in check. It has a process for kind of vetting information, surfacing it to the top, showing the better idea to the bad idea. Mm-hmm. And actually, their Community Notes stuff is all open source. It was a little bit disappointing, though, when they open sourced the algorithm the other day. Open source the algorithm, which step in the right direction. I'm not trying to attack, but what we learned basically is that it's not the live algorithm. It's an algorithm.
What do you mean?
So
what does that mean?
So it's not the production algorithm, at least from what we can tell, because you saw what happened with Substack.
Mm-hmm.
So
Has that been reversed?
I
think it has.
Yeah, I don't. I would need to confirm. I think that the ability to engage with those posts got changed back, but then like Taibbi's posts, you can even search them, but the point being is that, and I submitted a comment on their GitHub where this algorithm exists. It's like, well, if this is the algorithm, why wasn't the Substack blocking showing up in the algorithm the other day? I mean, it wasn't there. So clearly there's some sort of a link blacklist. And, Twitter did say that this isn't the whole algorithm and they're going to be releasing more over time. But the problem is we should have seen something change in that when all the Substack blocking went down.